Welcome to today's Facebook Live, where we're going to be talking all about how to build engagement or deepen engagement with a podcast. So this is part of a series that I've been doing for a while, for a number of weeks now. I think this is week 5, week 4, week 5. We're going to be doing these for a number of weeks that are coming up as well. And if this is the very first time you are joining in, I'm taking some of the content and diving a little bit deeper into it on today's Facebook Live, but you can access this mini training that I have developed for you. So let me just type that link into this area here so that you can go and grab that, particularly for those of you who might have to come back and watch it at a later stage. Here you can dive a lot deeper into from really where the market is changing and shifting, behaviours changing with consumers. There's some really exciting things happening in the world of podcasting, and as a business owner, as someone who is looking to build awareness, and also if you want to create an influential voice within your industry, a podcast is a really great way to be able to do that. So grab access to this free mini training and I'll certainly share with you how to do that. But today's training is all about how to build a deeper engagement with your ideal client and with your audience. And for those of you who are already marketing, you might be using a number of different platforms already, or a number of different methods such as blogging, writing articles, such as videos, social media platform. Those are all really great ways in which to build awareness and build influence even in your area of expertise. But what we're finding is, because the market is shifting, because there is so much noise and clutter online, it's becoming increasingly difficult for businesses to not only cut through that noise, but to maintain that attention, because there's so much noise going on, and because a lot of us are becoming far more difficult to kind of have that attention. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for joining today. So a lot of us, and even from consumers, are finding that we just don't have as much time to sit and watch videos, to read, so we scan things. And it's interesting that even though, all of those mediums are great, and I'm not saying you need to push those aside and forget those, I think what's happening is that there is a really great way that we can start to leverage those, but also with a podcast, because our podcast, I've been podcasting for 9 years now. It's been quite some time. And typically our podcast lengths are 20 to 30 minutes. Some of them have even been longer. And people are listening. They're engaging with the information and they're consuming it for that long period of time, because of the fact that we can listen to podcasts when we're commuting. A lot of the people that I ask questions, where do you listen to podcasts? Some people love to while they're listening at home, while they're doing the chores. One guy who's just a new podcast listener, and I've mentioned him a number of times in the various lives that I've had, he loves to mow the lawn and listen to a podcast and even soak in a bath. And so for him, 40 minutes is a great time because he says, I can listen and I can learn and I can be inspired and empowered whilst soaking in the bath or mowing the lawn. So people are consuming this content, podcasts, a lot more frequently. Commuting, you only have to see people sitting in the train. I don't know if many of you commute, but every now and again I have to go into the city, and it's really interesting because everyone's carrying one of these devices. Everyone's got headsets on, and so this is the way that people are tending to consume this content. So it's exciting to see that, okay, if we have a podcast, people are going to, once they find it, and once you have all of the things in place, and this is what I'm sharing today, they're more likely then to want to come back and to listen to you. We just released a new podcast last week, and it was for a guest called Ken Rutsky, and he talked about, he's from the US, and he's also in the media and marketing space, and he shared some really great insights. Today I get an email from someone, I have no idea who it is. I'll have to connect with them, probably do a shout out on the show, The Ambitious Entrepreneur Show. He said, I just listened to that interview. I loved it. Can't wait to hear the next show. Now, this is someone who I've never heard before, probably in the US. I haven't quite delve deep enough, I'm going to do a bit of a Google search, who enjoyed that content and actually reached out and sent an email to say that he appreciated that. Now, that's a great way that I can now build a relationship or find out what kind of content that he wants on this particular show, and to ensure that it continues to be of real benefit. So the 3 things that I want to talk about today, let me see if I can type up the first point, which is really important, and this is all about how to deepen the engagement. And you need to answer the question, who? Now, for some of the things that I'm going to be speaking about today, you might go, oh, I've already heard about that, I've already done that, and tick that off. However, it's because so many people do assume that they have answered this question, that they have gone through the material, but in actual fact, they haven't gone deep enough. And as I mentioned, today's marketplace, it's very noisy, it's very cluttered, and there's a lot of businesses who are vying for the attention of your ideal clients. So that means you need to be really clear. You have to be so clear and consistent in the message that you share. And the first is who. Who is the audience that you are trying to build a relationship with, that you are trying to engage with? And that audience member, if you're a business and you're using your podcast as a way to build influence, an influential voice in your area of expertise, then your audience member has to be the same as your ideal client. Otherwise, you're creating this incredibly engaged community, but they're never going to come across and invest in your services or your products through that nurturing of that relationship, because they're just not your ideal client. If you're creating your podcast more as a hobby, and that's fine, then, choose your audience and bring any type of content, that's fine. But this is for businesses who really want to leverage a podcast as part of their business building, their awareness building, and of course, to become that influential voice. Who is your ideal client? Now, remember, I dive deeper into some of the questions you need to have answered by at least, and of course, annemariecross.com/mini training. You can grab that and go through those questions. But the things that I wanted to share why are around understanding not only what your ideal client desires, what are the goals that he or she wants, but actually even deeper to that, it's around the emotions. Why is that so important to them? What is their why? What is it that if they're not going to achieve whatever it is that you can support them with, what's the negative impact around that? What is something that they're just not going to be able to achieve, even in themselves, that fulfillment, that meaning, that thing that they strive for? If you understand that, and then can bring that forward into your message and how you share that message, that is going to really build rapport and deepen engagement, because the person who's listening to your podcast, and even the guests that you invite on your podcast, they're going to get a sense that you really understand, because you do. You understand what they're struggling with. You understand the heartache or the emotion, what they're experiencing, and you also give them hope that there is possible for them, that it is possible for them to achieve their goals, because you've done that yourself. So you really need to understand who your ideal client is. Gone are the days where you've just got benefits and outcomes. Those are all very important, but we really need to create that experience around how we're sharing that, so that our ideal listener and our ideal client really understands that you get them. And that builds know, like, and trust. And as we know, like, and trust are really important in any relationship, particularly a customer relationship as well. So the first point is who. Who are your ideal client? Who is he or she? What drives them? What keeps them up at night? All of those really important things. The next point is, second point is what? What is your message? Now, your message needs to align. It needs to be relatable to your ideal listener, your ideal client. And if it's not, then it's just not going to be a message that will draw people back, that will not only capture attention, but will draw people back to come and listen to you. Remember, engagement is built often over a time frame. And we know marketers these days say that sometimes it takes 7 touch points, so 7 times for someone to hear, see, experience your message. And sometimes even, I remember one of our sponsors on one of the Ambitious Entrepreneur show said that sometimes in a really tightened market, it can take double the amount of time, so 14 times. Now you imagine if there's a lot of clutter going on and a lot of noise within your area, so within your space, that means that your message needs to be consistent, it needs to be on point, that people can relate to it, that it's a benefit to them, so that they are interested, so that they come back. And not only that, so that it compels them to action. You know, as part of your message, there should always be what's that next step that someone can take to enable them to take it further, to develop their learning, to develop their skills, so that they can achieve whatever success or whatever outcome that through your expertise they're going to be able to achieve. So, you know, with your message, it's really very important. What is that, what I almost call now that, what I'm calling that disruptive message? Is there something going on in your industry? Because you don't want to be the same old, same old. You don't want to be repeating what other people are saying. So is there something in the message that really people have forgotten about? Or because of the changing market and the industry that you are now in, people need to pivot. They need to change their approach, because doing it the same way is going to get the same results, if not worse results. I'm working with a client. We just picked up a new client yesterday, and they're in the fintech industry. We're creating a podcast series with the prospect of actually creating an ongoing series. Now, they have had a very successful business, in fact, over 40 years. But over the last probably 4 to 5 years, they were digitally disrupted. Their business pretty much just because of the technology within the financial space, they found that their business just went overnight, or over a series of years, obviously, was just not generating the growth and maintaining the growth in their industry. They were disrupted. Now what they have done is they've realised that they had to do something differently. They actually had to step away from their current business model, which had worked very well for them. They were successful over in 100 countries, and I'm talking multi-million dollar business. But they realised that because of technology, because of the changing marketplace and the changing consumers, that they needed to do something differently. So not only have they changed the way in which, and the methods in which they are going to be running their business and what they've developed, they're actually going to disown that disruption and go ahead and bring that to the market, so that now other companies that are following suit, so in other words, they're finding it very stressful and very difficult in this marketplace, can then invest in this product that they have created and then not have to experience what my client has. You see, the message has changed. Their message has changed, and they've had to completely reinvent. And now they're coming out on top, and you know the prospects for them is very, very exciting. So that's a change in the voice in that marketplace, and they're going to own that space. That's their goal with their podcast. So maybe something's happening in your space that you can take that message already, but give it a new viewpoint. Give it a new spin, use what's happening in the marketplace today, and give credit to why your ideal client needs to change their approach. Because if they don't, they may find themselves out of business. So think about, how can I bring a new aspect to that message, to that story that's currently being told, that is refreshing, that is exciting, and that can really generate the success and the outcomes that my ideal client is looking for. So your message, what you are sharing, is really important. The next point is, and this is the third one, is how. So you've got your message. Well, first of all, you know who your ideal client is, and you know exactly what they're struggling with. Then you've got a message which you know is speaking to the pain points and speaking to the successes and outcomes that your ideal client is wanting to achieve. And the third one is how, and this is around your mannerisms. So this is very much around who you are, the approach that you have, your characteristics, your unique style, how you bring that message forth. This is really exciting because often I'll speak to people and they'll say to me, Anne-Marie, I know that I'm passionate about what I do, yet there are so many other people who are in my space. How on earth can I stand out? How on earth can I create a message and deliver it in a way that is going to get noticed, that is going to compel people, and that is going to engage and deepen the engagement? And you know what? What's different, what's really unique, what's really distinguishable is how you bring that message forward. It's with purpose, with intention. That's why I love the mini training, and I've called it, and my upcoming training, Podcasting with Purpose. So it's all about telling your story with purpose. There's intention. When you recognize some of the key characteristics, the qualities, who you are and how you deliver that message around the how, and you do that with real intention and with real purpose, there's a level of confidence that comes through, that if you know exactly who your ideal client is and they not want to be you, but they want to have that level of success, that level of confidence of where you are, that's going to gravitate them towards you. So you need to be really mindful about some of those key things that make you unique. And often it's also too being at that stage where you give yourself permission to be you. Some of the characteristics that you may bring through is someone who is quite loud, someone who loves to tell a joke, someone who's quite humorous. So if you're trying to dumb that down, you know what? I would say embrace that and ensure that you're bringing that forward with purpose so that your message can be delivered in such a way that speaks directly to your ideal client. I read somewhere someone said this. It said that your message, if done really well, divides. If you have your message and how you're delivering that in a really unique, distinguishable way, it should divide the audience. Now, for some of us who are kind of, people pleasers, we don't like to think that some people might not like us. But in the world of marketing, it doesn't mean that they don't like you personally. It just means that they're not your ideal client. They don't resonate with your message, and that is okay. There's other people, other service providers, other product providers that can support them. You need to speak exactly to your ideal client. And your mannerisms and how you bring that forward and just who you are, showing up and giving yourself permission to be you, even bringing, transparency to that message too, which is another point I want to share, which is, I think, really important in this marketplace. When you do that, then people are going to resonate with you. Those who don't, that's fine. They can go and work with someone else. But you'll create an audience, a community of people who really build that know, like, and trust, because how you're delivering your message relates to them. It's relatable. They enjoy, they enjoy working with you, and that's really important. There's a number of people, I'm sure, that when they have a Facebook Live or when they're creating some content, that you really enjoy listening to it or viewing it because of the fact that how they're delivering that message and the message itself is really speaking to you and is really helpful. That's the kind of message that you want to create in your podcast so that you can create that community that comes back. Something about what I think is really important too around the message, around all these key aspects, I think, is transparency. Transparency can also be, I think, a little bit under the umbrella of authenticity. And I know that word, or being authentic, is one that's brandished around over and over again. It kind of is one of those buzzwords. But I am absolutely convinced that it is so important, specifically when you're talking about creating a personal brand, which is how it's your mannerisms. It's really understanding who you are so that when you bring your message forward, you're doing it in such a way that you are allowing yourself to step forward. So you stand up for who you are here to serve, your ideal client, and in a way that is comfortable for you and that allows you to be authentic in your delivery. You don't have to put a mask on. I mean, how often do we see people that seem there's something funny about them? We can't quite put our finger on it. And often it is the fact that they are putting a mask on. If that's something that you've been doing, I mean, don't do that. Don't try and fake it till you make it. Don't do all of that. If you get clear on the things that I've mentioned and also what I go through in the mini training and recross.com/mini training, you will have a clear message. You will have a clear defined audience, your ideal client, and then give yourself permission to step forward in who you are. So you don't need to fake it till you make it, because you're telling a relatable story that does resonate with people, and they want to know more about that. So authenticity, but transparency. You know how often we hear all about the success stories, and sometimes people, and this seems just so fake to me, where they have these cars, and I've even heard that people rent cars and they take photos and, you know, all of these multi-million-dollar properties and things like that. Look, if that's what they want to do, that is fine. But I think today people are, particularly why I'm sharing this is because there's been a number of women in business that I've been talking about, and what I have seen, or what they have said as feedback, is they're looking for the transparent story. They're looking for someone who has been or is struggling through what they're going through and is willing to have that conversation. And then through that, if you do that through your story, where you've been, struggles that you've gone through, and now what you've achieved because of the things and the steps that you've taken, it's kind of that is inspiring hope and empowering people to think, you know what, if they can do that, I can do that too. But in a way that is transparent, in a way that says, hey, if I can do it, you can do it as well. So there may be some aspects of that hero story, but not you being the hero in, hey, I'm fantastic and, you know, do what I do and you can be me, but more as the guide. And I heard this, I can't remember the guy's name, so excuse me if I remember it, I'll share, but he was talking about the way that they bring a story forth in across all of their message, a podcast as well, that if you create a story that allows yourself to be the guide rather than the hero, what you do is, as the guide, that you've got a plan, that you've got the steps to be able to support your clients, they then are empowered to be their own hero in their own story. And I think that is exciting. And that absolutely, when I heard him share that, I think that's exactly what I love to do is, you know, I've got this amazing community which I've built over the years through the guests that I have had on my podcast, and just the emails that I get, like the one that I shared, you know, thank you for sharing that. It was really helpful for me. That it may have even changed the course of someone's life and the choices that they've made. That to me is just so exciting. I didn't do that. It's not because of me, but rather the information I shared empowered them and inspired them. It changed their way of thinking to, hey, maybe it's possible for me. Once you understand that, and once you have that in your business, you can achieve that as well, where you can inspire people to achieve greater things and outcomes as well. So I hope that was helpful for you. So the three things again: who's your ideal client? Who's your ideal audience? Do you know them so well that every single thing that you share, that you speak about, is going to be of value to them? What is the message that you are sharing? Does it relate to your ideal client? Is it helpful? Does it cut through the noise? Is it going to engage with them on a deeper level and have them come back to want to learn more? And how are you bringing that forward? What are your mannerisms? What's unique about you? And how are you going to deliver that in a way that people can relate to you, that you're quite distinguishable in the marketplace and able to continue to bring that message to a growing community of people who are engaged with your content? So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to put the training again, the mini training, and recross.com/mini training, so that you can access the free mini training. It's quite a long, so it's broken into segments around, you know, things that are happening in the market. I think as CEOs of our businesses, it's important to be aware of what's happening in the marketplace so we can kind of be not reactive but proactive in the decisions that we make, so that we don't wait till, you know, the final crunch and then we've got to make a decision. If you're not thinking ahead and realizing where the market is going and shifting before that, then it's going to be very difficult for you. So I spent a little bit of time about that. the consumer behavior change which is going on. Once you recognize that, then you can make sure that you can not only adjust the way that you're bringing forth your message, such as the method, such as podcasting, such as what you're sharing on social, the things that you share on Facebook Lives and other mediums and modes of communication. And then also, what are some of the things you need to think about, some key questions to help you define your message, define who you are, define who your ideal client is, and also some free low-cost and no-cost tools to get you started in podcasting. So annemariecross.com/mini training. So hope to catch you again next week, same time, 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, where I'll be diving a little bit deeper into another topic about podcasting, about brand, around communications, so that you can be heard, you can stand out and become the influential voice in your field. I hope you can join me. Bye.